A 3-week study we're doing, and the name of the study is Love God, Neighbor, Enemy. Love God, Neighbor, Enemy. So we're going to spend these 3 weeks sort of unpacking that, looking at the what of it and the why of it and the how of it. So I'm going to Well, we're going to start just by talking a little bit about words. And I think I heard from some of you that last Sunday, our visiting preacher talked a little bit about the words that are used in the New Testament for love. Does anybody remember any of the words? Eros, yeah, but that's not in the New Testament. Yeah, yeah. Well, we all know what eros is, right? Yeah, there's no place for it really in the New Testament. Maybe in the Old Testament. Huh? Agape, right, yeah. And there's another one. Yeah, philia. Yeah, philia, right. So, what did you learn about these words? What did you learn about agape? Anything? That's okay. God's love, yeah, God's love. Pretty. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Well, I'm going to say to you tonight that agape is a word that has social and moral dimensions to it, okay? And philia is a word that has relational dimensions, okay? So philia, as we think of, brotherly love, right? Brotherly and sisterly love. Philadelphia, the sister of brotherly love. Yeah. So we think of that as love between family members, love between friends. There's definitely a relational aspect to it, and it usually goes two ways, right? Yeah. When there's love between brothers, we usually assume that means that it goes both ways. So it's you love me, I love you. Agape is not quite the same because, as somebody said, as Keith said, I think, that's God's love for the world. And so that's a love that kind of goes out in one direction, but it goes pretty wide and pretty deep and pretty far. Okay, it's a most extravagant love that we know of. Okay, but think about this for a minute. We say that philia is a relational kind of love. Agape is something different, something social, moral. But for God, everybody is related. Yes? Yeah. So for God and God's love and the love that we are called to share, they're really the same thing. Okay? Relational love for everybody. It's a stretch to think of it, but that's what we are called to do. We are called to share this love in the same way that God does. Okay, we are called to love as Christ loves, as the way he showed us how to love. Now there's another word that we don't talk about as much because it's a Hebrew word for love, and that word is ahava. Ahava. And this is a word that is related to the word in Hebrew that means to give. So this love, ahava, is a kind of a self-giving love. So who loves in that kind of way? In a very self-giving way. Parents do, yes, they sure do. Yeah, yeah. And God does, and Jesus did. Jesus gave his whole life, so that's a real self-giving kind of love. And so love in Hebrew, we could say, is seen as an act of self-giving. And that's the way we should understand Jesus' command to us to love, as a self-giving act. And so we're going to talk about this kind of extravagant love tonight. So I want to do a little bit of word association with you now and talk about some things. What's our framework for some of these things? You tell me and just shout them out. What words come to mind when you hear love God? Anything, how word association works. Anything that comes to mind. Forgiveness. Okay, I'm going to write some things down. Forgiveness, worship, Father, What do you think of when you think of loving neighbor? Love neighbor.
Charity.
Charity. Friendship. Friendship. I think I heard, did I hear somebody say sharing? Okay, sharing. Empathy. Caring. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, this is great. You guys are full of words. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think of, and I think I'm going to try to flip this board over now. Love enemy. Yeah. What are some words that come to mind when you think of love enemy? Difficult. Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing I think of. It's hard. It's hard. What else? Anything else?
It has to be empathy.
Empathy again? Yeah. Important. That is important. I know you can't keep the camera on me. I'm sorry about that.
And you said fear.
Fear.
If it's your enemy, would you be afraid?
Yeah, that's maybe a reaction that you have
Yes.
when you hear that you are supposed to love your enemy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Forgiving.
Forgiving. Any other words that come to mind? I appreciate the honesty. Difficult, fear, these things are truly hard. Even
Sharing.
for us saints.
I don't know, sharing is the word.
Sharing? Well, say more about that, Keith. What do you mean when you say
It's
that?
like when you give your shirt, your coat, your,
Uh-huh. To an enemy.
yeah, take
Ooh.
they ask for a coat, your shirt,
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Right, what Jesus says about, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so.
Hoping.
Giving.
Hoping there'll be a change.
Hoping.
Because I mentioned praying for Putin.
Right. When we try to love an enemy, we are hoping for a
That their heart will
change.
change.
Yeah. Maybe a change in that person, maybe just a change in the relationship, maybe a change in ourselves. All right, thank you for that, Kit. Yeah, maybe what we are hoping for is a change in ourselves, because maybe we have something to do with the fact that we're enemies. Anything else? That's good, you guys, this is some great words. Good to help us get thinking about this a little bit. So our scripture for tonight, you all should have a copy of the page, the side that says love extravagantly on the top, and then it's got a passage from Luke. So I'm gonna read it aloud, you all can follow along, and then I'm going to ask you just silently to reread it yourself, and I'll tell you what to be looking for then. But for now, let's just acquaint ourselves with the passage and just follow along with me. This is Jesus, it's part of his, what they call the Sermon on the Plain. In Matthew, he gives a similar speech, and it's called the Sermon on the Mount because he climbs up the mountain. In Luke, he doesn't climb up the mountain, he just stays down at ground level, and so it's called the Sermon on the Plain. So here we go. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. That's what you were thinking of, Keith. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. He also told them a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully qualified will be like the teacher. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, "Friend, let me take out the speck in your eye," when you yourself do not see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. All right, now I'm going to take a few minutes now. I'm going to ask you to read it again silently and pay attention to Jesus's verbs. The verbs. We all know what a verb is, right? Anybody need a refresher? Okay, pay attention to his verbs and circle them. Okay? So let's take a few minutes and do that. There are pens on the table if you don't have one.
I do, I can see. Is there one? Nope.
Oh.
I may have to go back to school here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should do that. Take like a deep break. Shut up. Ain't no week. It's 17 months. How would you? Oh, yeah, you do. You do. Where?
There you go, Mom.
I'll let her make it.
Goodness sake, how we doing? How we doing? I see people still working. So in like a minute, I'm going to ask us to come back together and share a little bit about what we've learned. So what actions is Jesus telling his listeners to do? What?
I have not the first word, listen. And I have a story, and I don't think Clyde Taylor would mind me telling this story. I had a friend who was diagnosed with cancer, and Clyde, as a cancer survivor, has really reached out to a lot of people who are in that situation to give them comfort and guidance. And I went to Clyde and I said, "What do I say to my friend?" And she says, "You don't say anything, you listen."
Yeah. So in case some people didn't hear that, she's sharing a story about asking somebody who has been Clyde Taylor, who has had her own struggles with cancer, what should I say to a friend who is struggling with cancer? And her answer was, you don't say, you listen. You listen. So I'm going to put listen up here because you mentioned that one. What are some other verbs you circled? Things that Jesus said you should do? Love. What else?
Forgive,
Forgive.
listen. Oh, you got that?
Got listen, right.
Receive,
Okay, well, I can't hear everybody at once. Did you say something over here? No?
Do
Okay.
good.
Do good? Yeah, do good.
receive,
Receive?
Less.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Pat?
Less.
Bless?
pray,
Pray?
Notice.
Notice?
and I circled will be a lot,
Lend.
but
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of verbs, not every single one of them is going to be, that we're going to give a lot of attention to.
Give or take.
Give,
Give. Well,
give is not up here.
no.
see,
See? Hmm?
Take.
Take.
yeah, take's in there.
Where's that?
It says, take the log out of your own eye.
Oh, okay. So I'll add that one. Mhm. Take the log. I'll put that in there. So we know what that means. Did we get lend? Yeah, we got lend. How about offer? Did anybody notice that? Offer? Somebody say do good?
Do we have guide in there?
Be merciful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Be merciful.
And guide,
Guide?
yeah, isn't that a verb? I will guide you.
Sure, yeah. it
Oh,
is.
yeah,
Mhm.
guide is a good word.
Yeah.
Not judge. Judge not.
That's
Right,
another
right.
concept.
Yeah,
Do
so
not-
put
that's
that in
the
the do not
three
column.
judge.
And
Yeah.
let's go ahead and move over there now. So do not judge. What else?
Condemn.
Condemn.
Do not condemn.
Everybody likes that word, do not condemn.
Preach, preach.
Do not condemn. Judge
Anything
condemn.
else that we should not do?
Well, forgive needs to be on the do side.
What?
Forgive needs to be on the do side.
Forgive is on the do side, yeah, we got it there.
Right.
Yeah, we
Oh,
got
yep,
it.
we do.
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah. Do not condemn, do not judge.
Do not ask. Ask.
Do not ask. I think there's expect, isn't there expect in there? I've got to
Yeah,
find
there's
that
an
now.
expecting and
Expecting nothing in
Nothing,
return,
yeah.
so let's just say do not expect.
withhold.
Hmm?
Withhold.
Withhold.
Judge.
Judge, yep, we got judge up there. Yeah. Okay. All right, I think we've got a good representation there. And if there's anything that we missed and you just remember it, just shout it out. But the do's and the do-nots, and particularly thinking about the ones where he's talking about how we treat other people, okay? Which is most of it, where most of that's what he's talking about there is how we treat other people. So, I want you to think about, let's start, just look at the do's here. What are those things that you have opportunity to do these things with people? And he's mostly talking about your enemies, right? Because he starts out with, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. So I want you to just think for a minute about how, when, and where you have opportunities to do these things with or for your enemies. Yes, Kit?
I was on a listening phone line for a number of years. People would call in with problems and you were to listen to them. So,
Right.
I found out that listening is very important.
So this was like an emergency hotline?
No, it wasn't even an emergency, it was just a hotline for people who needed someone to talk to.
For people who needed somebody to talk to, a
Yes.
number they could call and just have somebody listen to them.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It was
That's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. Jody?
The one that says, give to everyone who begs from you, that's a hard one because
Uh-huh.
you don't know if
They're
you're
everywhere.
helping them.
Right, right. Yeah, it's hard, and we all know it, we've all seen it. It's hard to obey this one that says, give to everybody who begs from you, because we see a lot of people, anytime you go around town, you see people, when you're driving in your car and stuff. And we all have the conflict in our own minds about when we should, whether we should, how we should give to other people.
One other point on this, the more you give,
Uh-huh.
the more that is receiving wants more
Okay, so
that you have
sometimes,
given.
yeah, so that can be an issue too.
So it's really a difficult place to play.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some people have experienced that, where you give to somebody who asks, and then they ask for more, and you have to figure out for yourself
Where is it?
when it's enough.
It gets into the lines, 3 Christians, nothing top of the second. About where it is.
Yeah. Anybody want to share anything as you think about what these things on the do side, when you have opportunities to do that, when you have had, how you have had opportunities, when you maybe feel a nudge to do some of these things? Anybody else want to share anything?
I think when a friend loses a spouse or something, listening is very important. There's not much you can say to relieve their pain, but to listen is
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that ties in with what Pat said. The listening is so important when somebody has experienced a loss of some kind. Let me just take it to the next step there, a challenge, and say, what about listening to people you don't like? People maybe you don't know, okay? How about that? How do you feel about that? I think about that thing that I used to hear the kids say when my kids were young, and I forget, I'm gonna do it wrong, but it's like, they'd say, talk to the hand, because the face don't care. And that's something that they'd say when they just didn't want to listen to you. Did your kids do that? Yeah, so what do you think about that? Listening to somebody you don't know, or somebody you don't care for, or somebody you really actively dislike?
You might learn something.
You might learn something. This is very true, Dodie. You might learn something. Yeah. But again, as we said earlier, it's a hard thing to do, isn't it?
I think particularly since COVID,
Yeah?
there's a lot of disrespect for one another in the general public, whether it's
Huh.
customer service. Personally, I kind of felt that there's just a lot of disrespect.
Uh-huh.
Even little things like people throwing trash on your front yard.
So you're seeing more disrespect since COVID.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe some other people agree with that, too. What do you feel like you are not doing? And I just want to, for the moment, focus on the do's. What do you look up there and say, I'm not doing that? Maybe I should do that, and I'm not doing that.
What's the difference between bless and pray? When you bless somebody, what's the difference?
Anybody want to jump on that one? I mean, in general, I don't think there's really a difference, you know. Come on in, guys.
Well, you had in one of your sermons about bless, and it answered a need to me, because I wasn't sure when I was praying to bless somebody what that included.
What that means when we bless somebody,
But
yeah.
you opened up the
Yeah.
door and said it did mean love, and you know,
And
goodness.
blessings, yeah, and blessings are, I mean, like, I think it was probably in that same sermon, I said that there are blessings for everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it feels weird to say, bless this horrible, tragic situation, but it's about putting it in God's hands. Basically, it's about putting it in God's hands. And when we bless God, that's a way of praising and honoring God, you know. But in that sense, I think, if we're talking about putting something in God's hands and praising God, it's a prayer. It's a kind of a prayer.
And this is what it helped me was I didn't know that when I prayed God to bless somebody, that the totality of what that included, and that made me feel better. It made me feel that my prayer was more meaningful.
Yes, well, your prayer is meaningful. Yes, always. Your prayer is meaningful. Okay.
I'm interested in the C, just from the standpoint of there's things around you that you don't even notice. And I think God is asking us to open our eyes.
Open our eyes and see, yeah. Now, does anybody else relate to that? The notion that we are maybe being called to see, and we're walking around, you know, like with tunnel vision, or just too focused on our own interests and not seeing. Does anybody else have that
It's sort of like
problem?
seeing other people might have more problems than you have.
That's, okay, so you might, if you actually see, you might see that there are a lot of people who also have difficulties, and yours might not seem so overwhelming, maybe. Is that what you mean,
Yes,
Keith?
yes.
When we pay attention to what other people are going through. And I actually hear that a lot from people, and people who are suffering, and they'll say to me, oh my goodness, I know, you know, I look around me, or I watch the news, or I read the paper, or I listen to other people, and I know that people have so many things going on, you know, things that I just feel terrible about, and my problems just don't feel like anything significant when I think of that, because I have so many blessings. I have so much good in my life that I'm thankful for. I'm surprised, maybe not surprised, but I do hear that a lot from people who are struggling and people who are suffering. Kit?
I think for me, it helps to remind myself that I need to respect this person, no matter who they are, and to at least respect them as a person and try to hear them out.
Yes. Respect them as a person, listen to them, try to hear them out, even if you are having like a knee-jerk reaction
Yeah, like,
to what
oh,
you're
boy,
hearing.
I hope I don't run into this guy again.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Or when you're walking, you see them across the street and you just kind of, and then they call out your name, and you're like, yeah. It's hard to love our enemies, for sure. I want somebody to volunteer to read just verse 31. 31.
Do to others as you would have them do to you.
Okay, and I think just for good measure, I think let's all read that together. It's a short verse. Verse 31. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Okay, and I'm going to put it up here.
Can you see that?
Right.
Do to others as you would have them do to you. Okay, anybody know what we call this sometimes? It has a, huh? Golden rule, yes. Uh-huh.
And sometimes these days it's now do unto others before they do unto you.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, that would be on the do not side. Do not, right.
One I learned a long time ago.
Well, let's see if we can unlearn it. Okay, so that's the one from Luke. Okay, here's another one. Can anybody read this? I apologize if it's too small for you're in the back of the room. Anybody want to read that one?
Which one?
Right here. Can you see it? Jaden, you with the good eyes?
Treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful.
Now, can you do it one more time in a big voice?
Treat not others in ways that you would yourself find hurtful.
Okay, treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. And that one is from Buddhism. Okay? That one is from Buddhist faith. Okay, here's another one.
That's the negative of the first
It
one.
is a negative. It says, don't do things, if you don't like it, don't do it to other people. Okay, anybody want to read this one?
Well, I'll try it.
Okay.
Not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself.
Oh, I
Very
like
good.
that.
Not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself, and that is from Islam. Okay. Is that a positive or a negative, Pat?
I feel it's a positive.
It's a positive, yeah. Right, right. Whatever you wish for yourself, that's what you should do for others. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I like it.
It is.
Okay. Here's another one.
You're getting all Christians, all the way you're doing all the religions.
Exactly. Yeah. Can anybody see
Same
this and
message.
want to read this one? Anybody? I don't know. Can you see it? I've got the podium in the way for those back there, don't I? This one says, I'll read it. It says, this is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. This is the sum of duty. Do not do to others
Not one of you
what would
truly
cause
believes.
pain if done to you. And that is from Hinduism. And that's
Very similar to
that's
the
very
one
similar
right
to
beside
this
it, to the
one.
left
Yes.
of it.
The wording of it is very similar to this one, I think, right? Do not do to others what would cause pain, what you would find hurtful.
I was
Very
thinking
close.
of Islam too.
Hmm?
Yeah, very close to what Islam is saying. The one-
We're very excited.
Well, this one is more about whatever you would
Wish
like for
for
yourself,
others.
whatever you wish for yourself, do for others. Or wish for others too. This one is, don't do the painful stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so here's one last one here. Anybody see that one? Yeah. That which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah, and the rest is interpretation. Go study.
All right.
And that's from Judaism.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, so again, that one is negative. It's worded in the negative. If it's hateful to you, don't do it to somebody else. What do you think about that phrase? Maybe you've heard this one before. If this is the entirety of the law, all the rest is commentary.
You know, if we could just do these things, all the problems in the world would go away. There wouldn't
Did y'all
be
hear
any
that?
war, there wouldn't be
That's-
any poverty.
Yeah, so that's the lesson for tonight and for the next
Go
2
home
weeks.
now.
If you could just do all these things, that would be really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And we'd have no more problems. So just go do it, or like Jesus said, go do likewise.
I won't go into the long detail, but I have having a little oomph with somebody. And I think that the bottom line is love one another. And I can't do anything about Putin. I wish I could. I can pray at night for Putin.
Yeah.
But I can maybe do the next door neighbor or the person that I meet in the store.
Right.
So I can't do the world, but maybe in my world, I can do something.
So there's that saying that you probably heard, think globally, act locally, which is just, it's just common sense. You know, care about the whole world, but do what you can do, which is
Right here.
right here and now, yeah. So you're saying, in one sense, pray globally, but
But I-
act locally.
But- Right.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that pretty well
Right.
sums it up.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, we can impact the people that we have encounters with, the people that we meet, the people who are in our community. We can impact those people. You personally, Pat, cannot do much about Vladimir Putin. I can't either, but we can pray for him.
But if everybody did it to their own people
Right.
around them, we have a better chance.
If we all did it, it would be really cool.
It would be really cool. And I think to respect one another.
Is there one on here that you would say you like the best?
I think Luke takes care of it all.
You like the Luke
I like
passage
the Luke, it's
best?
do. You know, it's do. I like the positive part.
It's
just-
simple.
It's very simple. Do unto others.
Because you would have them do to you.
Yeah, I think that I like
Makes
that.
sense. Anybody have a preference for a different one?
I do the pain one.
You like what?
The pain.
Pain one.
You like the pain? Come on.
Instead of the duty.
Yeah,
Not cause pain
okay.
to other people.
And maybe in some ways that's an easier one for some people. You know, if it would be painful to you, then, you know, maybe it's not too much of a stretch to say, well, don't do that to anybody else, you know, if it would be something that you would find painful. So, okay. I want to ask you another question, shift the topic a little bit, and I want to ask you what you think is the difference between loving and liking. What's the difference between loving and liking?
I got some ideas there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, when you love, you don't see the things that are difficult about that person. You don't see maybe the ugliness or the homeliness. You accept them as the way they are, and you love them for the person they are.
Yeah, that's all, yeah, that's
I
all
agree
good.
with
I didn't say that very well.
No,
I think
you
I
said
agree
it very
with you,
well, yeah.
Robert.
But are
I
you
agree.
saying, what would you say about liking?
Well, liking is because they do things that are pleasant in your sight, you know.
Okay, okay.
You like them because they do nice things to you.
You like somebody because somehow they bring pleasantness to your life.
Yeah.
They do things for
Or
you,
they're just,
you enjoy their company.
yeah, right.
Uh-huh. So it's a little bit more transactional, maybe?
It's,
To-
it's deeper when you love.
It's deeper when you love. Would you all say that like and love are on a continuum together?
Yeah.
Well, I could say, I agree with Bob because I think God loves us, but he doesn't particularly care for, or even our children. We may not like what the children may do, but we love them unconditionally. We love our
Right,
children. But if
exactly.
they do something we're not, I don't particularly like that. But I think Bob's right.
Yeah.
God loves us no matter what we do.
Right. Martin, go ahead, Larry.
Well, some people have referred to love as you care more about the other person than yourself.
Right, okay. So love is more selfless,
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Yes.
than like, okay. Yeah, that's an important difference, I think. J.C.?
It's going to get me in trouble, but I love Pat, but it's taken me 54 years to really like her.
JC, nobody here believes that. Not for a minute. Martin Luther King said that we should be happy that Jesus did not say, like your enemies, because some people are pretty near impossible to like. He said, love your enemies, and he says, those are two different things, actually. Love is not a stronger version of like. Like is not a more tepid version of love. King is saying, he preached a lot about love, and he had a lot of thoughts about loving your enemy. And you can understand why, right? I mean, the guy was persecuted constantly. But he said, in his words, like is a sentimental and affectionate word. Love is about action. Okay. Love is how you treat somebody. Love is what you're willing to do for somebody, what you're willing to sacrifice for somebody. Love is just a whole lot more about action. And we talk a lot about that, really, I think, in the church. That love is more an action word. Like is, it's weak, actually. I think like is kind of a weak word, you know. I mean, I like Coca-Cola, I like chocolate, I like certain TV shows. But love is a different matter.
And sometimes we overuse the term love too.
We overuse
you say,
the term
I
love.
love Coca-Cola, that's stretching love.
Yeah, that's stretching love, right? To have the same word for Coca-Cola and for the person you've been married to for 50 years or your child. Yeah, Dodie?
Could you say that love is more everlasting? And like, you might like a person for a while and then.
I think that's a good observation, right? Because like is more dependent on what that person's doing or what they're saying or how they're treating you. It is absolutely transitory, you're right. And love is a commitment, isn't it? Yeah. And it is going to be more of an everlasting thing, you're right.
It feels different.
It feels different from like. Absolutely.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's here, and it's how you feel inside.
Yeah.
You can like a lot of things, but you don't feel that.
And
You don't feel.
So have you ever heard this, that if you don't feel love towards somebody, act like you do, and the love will come. Treat them with love, and the love will come. So it doesn't necessarily start out with that feeling, right? Right. I mean, sometimes it does. You know, people talk about love at first sight. When you have a baby, I think that's love at first sight.
That's really